Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. Today we're going to talk about the history of sports facilities. So many experts has been trying really hard to figure out how many facilities existing in the world, how many sports facilities exist in the world. Actually, it's a very challenging question. It's very difficult for them to define the answers. And it's because the answers will really depend on how you're going to define what sports facilities is. I believe we all agree the facilities like stadiums, arenas, and fitness centers are sports facilities. So we've been to these for sports facilities all the time. At the very beginning, when we try to define what the sports facilities is, a lot of experts think we shouldn't include those neutral areas, such as lakefront properties. However, nowadays people are using lakefront properties to engage or to participate in water-related sports, right? So people started to think, oh, possibly neutral areas should also be included when we try to define the sports facilities. In addition to the lakefront property, another example is golf course. We find out a lot of golf course, they were built at the very beginning, they were actually built in the neutral areas, right? So we all believe golf course are sports facilities nowadays. So the experts started to change their definitions. And later they think possibly permanency is a factor to define a sports facility. So that means to become a sports facility, so the facility need to be permanent. However, in the past 10 or 20 years, we have seen so many sports facilities were turned down and turned into parking lot. So a lot of temporary facilities were also existing where sports events are being held. So, and they think possibly the permanencies cannot become a factor to define the sports facilities, right? So what is the sports facilities? In our class, we think sports facility is any enclosed facility that built, installed, and established as a location where sports are played. So we'll give you a very broad definitions as long as we build a the place where sports are be able to play, that we consider them as sports facilities. Another definition we would like to introduce here is called public assembly facilities. So those include sports facilities and other entertainment facility where large numbers of people can gather. So in addition to like stadium, arena, so those facilities that we're familiar with, we also could consider like convention centers and theaters. There are public access facilities. So for the convention center and theaters, at the very beginning, they were created for a particular purpose, right? So for instance, convention centers were created for organizing some exhibitions, trade shows, and theater was created for the performance, like musical performance or entertainment performance. But later on, more and more sports events are also being held in these areas, in these arenas, in these facilities, right? But the most common facility we would say are stadiums and arenas. So anyone know what the big difference between stadiums and arenas? So what a big difference. So let's look at stadium first. Stadium, how can we define a stadium? So stadium is a venue that contains a playing surface surrounded by spectator seatings and is mainly utilized for outdoor sports events. So think about what kind of the facility that we call them stadiums, right? You find out the stadium be mainly utilized to play sports like football, like soccer, like baseball, like rugby, like cricket, and sometimes also being used for hosting events like track and fields and some other sports, right? So all these kind of stadium, you find out they mainly has been utilized for hosting outdoor sports, right? They normally include large turf surface, and also it can accommodate large numbers of the spectators. right? So this is the stadiums. And actually, since 1960s, dome stadiums also became popular in the U.S. Since 1963, the first dome stadium was built in Dallas, and it was built in Houston. The reason dome stadium was built and also became popular in the US was because they provide a protection for the inclement weather. So sometimes we talk about stadium has been utilized for hosting outdoor sports, right? But when we have inclement weathers, so a lot of times they decided to move these outdoor sports activities to the dome stadiums, and then that just easier for these events to be hosted in these bad weathers. Okay, so this is about stadiums. Another popular facility that we're familiar with is arenas, right? Arena is the surface that completely enclosed to provide playing space on a central area, court, or floor surrounded by spectators sitting with the high sitting clearness. Right, so think about what kind of sport has been played at the arenas. I think basketball been played in arenas, hockey, volleyball, handball, gymnastics. You find out arena mainly has been utilized for hosting indoor sports, kind of like indoor sports facilities, right? So compared to stadiums, arena has slightly like smaller spectator capacities. Also, arena always has been utilized for the multiple purpose, right? Arena has been used for not just hosting sports events, but also try to use for hosting other things. For instance, we have a graduation ceremony every year that we've been hosting in our basketball venues, arenas, right? So arena can be utilized for hosting a lot of different kind of things. And the third times of the means venue has been using for hosting sports is the convention center, as we mentioned before. It was decided for a host convention where individuals and groups can gather to promote and share their common interest. But nowadays, convention center has also been utilized for hosting sports competitions, like a lot of e-sport competition, for instance. They decided to host in the convention center because audience can get very close to the spectators. They can create a very good atmosphere and let everyone to enjoy the competitions. So those are different types of sports facilities. What are other types of sports facility? Let's look at some example. We're familiar with the field house. So what's a field house? Field house normally is a large multi-purpose indoor facilities, normally with a running track, right? With the running track that we consider as a field house. In addition to the field house, we also have a gymnasium. So gymnasium is also an indoor facility with the high ceiling for sports competition, practice, and physical education. Compared to field house, they don't have an indoor track, right? So those are different. For the rec center, normally it's a multi-purpose facility designed for fitness, wellness, and sports based on the needs of users. And also another popular sports facility that we're familiar with is sports complex. It's also a large multi-purpose venues, normally used for competitions or recreational sports. So those are different types of facilities. And also we have the aquatic centers or aquatic facilities. If you go to a standardized aquatic facility, you normally have a 3 different pool. So it has a swimming pool, and also you have a like warm cup pool. So normally it has a competition pool and warm cup pool. So for the swimming pool, we have a 25 meters, which we call a short core. We also have 50 meters, which we'll call long core. A lot of time we call this is an Olympic standards swimming pool. That means it's a long core, right? 50 meters long. But a lot of time you'll be able to make a judgment. So if that's 50-meter long pool, you can make some changes, make it become a 25 meters pool. That's become very common. In addition to swimming pool, we also have a diving pool, right? Diving pool, normally you have a platform and springboard, right? Based on the requirement for the competition and practice. So they have a 3 meter, 5 meter, 10 meter platforms and 1 meter and 3 meter springboard. So those are like aquatic facilities. Of course, we have so many sports nowadays. We also have a different type of sports facility does have a different kind of requirements. So that this is a sports facilities. We spend a lot of time talking about this modern sports facility that we're familiar with. So let's go and look at the history. I want to think about how the sports facility was built during the ancient times. So when we look at these histories, we'll be really surprised. We're surprised how smart human being was 1,000 years ago. Because when you look at this facility, you find out these facilities built thousands of years ago were really, really similar to what we have today. Okay, speaking of the oldest sports facility, we have to go back to ancient times, right? Last lecture, I think you still remember, we talked about the earliest document sporting events in human beings in history was the ancient Olympic Games, right? So ancient Olympic Games, it was held in 776 BC. As we mentioned last time, so the game itself has been lasting for almost 1,000 years. So during the ancient time in ancient Greece, so sports was a form of worships. So the reason for people to participate in sport or participate in ancient Olympic Games was because they would like to use this festival to express their support and honor their god Zeus. So ancient Olympic Games was not completely a sporting event. It was also part of the religious ceremonies. People were using sport as a platform to express their honor to their god. So ancient Olympic Games, as we mentioned last time, it has been lasting for about 1,000 years. At the very beginning, they only had track and field, and later on, they started to add more sports. So they have sports like wrestling, have boxing, have martial arts, and that has also been included in the ancient Olympic game programs. So every ancient Olympic Games, very similar to now the Olympic Games we have. It hosts every 4 years. Every time it lasts for 4 to 5 days, right? So this is about the ancient Olympic Games. To host the ancient Olympic Games and Olympia, so they have to build facilities. So that was the ancient Olympic Games facility. It was called STADIA. So today we call it stadium. So the stadium was actually coming from the word is actually coming from the ancient Greece stadium. So the ancient Olympic Games, they have the stadiums. It was initially temple. So later they expanded to training facilities, and also they cover a running track there. For the ancient Olympic Games, at the very beginning, we talked about they only had one event. So that was men's 200-yard full race. For those competition, the history have done a lot of studies. A lot of historians think the athlete they compete at the ancient Olympic Games, they were wearing shorts only, and female was not allowed to participate and even watch the Olympic Games. So all the spectators were male, and all these participants were also male. But the game itself was not quite safe for the spectators. One of the reasons was because all the spectators, they were not allowed to wear hats because they think it will blow other people's will. The ancient Olympic Games was hosting during the summer, so it's really, really hot. So there are a lot of spectator at the beginnings, they would die when they watch the game due to the hot weather, so they got strokes, so they die when they watch the game. So for the event organizers, in order to protect those spectators, so they decided to provide foods and drinks during the game. Think about that was 2,000 years ago, right? People were able to provide drinks and foods during the games. Very similar to what we have today, right? The concessions items that include some sausages and old cheese, and to provide it to the audience. But the facility did not have the restaurant if they want to use the restaurant. So they have to go outside of facilities and use like a dry riverbed there. So those are the ancient sports facilities. And also another kind of like interesting things about the ancient sports facilities was they build not just facilities, but they actually build a sports complex. So they have training facilities, they have a competition called STADIA, they also have the hostel, which was used for hosting those wealthy visitors. We talk about the event attract about 40 or 50,000 people from all over Greece, ancient Greece, to go and watch the games. But a lot of people, they were poor, so they would not be able to stay in these hotels. So during the games, a lot of time they were sleeping outside these arenas. So over the night. So this is about the ancient games stadium. Let's look at a little bit more about the stadium itself, the venue itself called STADIA, right? The STADIA was shaped like a U. They built into the hillsides. The interesting thing about the STADIA is that we actually couldn't really get the real pictures from the 2,000, 3,000 years ago, because the STADIA they built at that time was destroyed most of the time. So this is like sort of the picture people would think, oh, this might be the stadium was utilized to host the event at that time. So interesting thing was the athletes and spectators, they actually have a separate interest. Very similar to today, right? The athletes and audience today, we also have a separate interest. And also the athlete and empire, they normally came into the stadium through their own interest, and they also have the particular place for the officials. So officials able to sit in the very special stone seat, and other regular audience just sit, in the regular seats. The stadia itself was big enough for 20 people to compete at the same time. So 20 people run at the same time. So it can accommodate up to 50,000 spectators. So those are the stadia. So inside the stadia, you can see the track was about 230 yards about long and also 35 yards wide. So this is what the stadia looks like. So this is the earliest sports facility that we know today. It's a stadium that has been utilized during the ancient Olympic Games in the ancient Greece. In the ancient Greece, in addition to the stadia, the second types of the facilities was hippodrome. Hippodrome was initially being utilized for building to host events like horse racings. So horse racing was also really popular at the ancient Greece. At that time, all the horse racing competitions had to run 7 rounds. And to organize this kind of horse racing competition, so they organized hippodrome. And unlike the stadia where they built a seat for the spectators, hippodrome actually did not actually have the seat provided for the spectators. So most of the spectators, they have to stand there for the whole time when they're watching the competitions. The empire at that time was also very interesting in watching the horse racing competition. So he showed up there all the times, and also he was also responsible for rewarding for the winner of the race. So in order to control the crowd movements, So obviously the empire also have a separate entrance, and they also have a particular area. Just like today, we have the VIP area we create for special guests, right? So in Hippodrome, they also have like a VIP area, particularly for using to accommodate those politicians, particularly these empires and the kings. So those are the Hippodromes. Hippodrome, they're using kind of like a completely different material to build a facility. They're using huge stone to build a facility, so they look huge at that time. So this is the second facilities we introduced, which is Hippodromes. The Hippodromes also have the huge impact today. If you've been to Athens, Greece, one of the really well-known facility is Panathinaikos stadiums. So Panathinaikos stadiums was actually adopted from that time. So that was constructed from the remainder of the ancient Greek stadiums. It's also the only stadiums in the world right now that construct of the white marbles. For the Panathinaikos stadiums was actually a stadium that was hosted in 2004 Summer Olympic Games. So it's been existing for many years. So these stadiums, so all these material can be traced back to the wooden structures that back to 556 BC, and it was reconstructed in stones in 330 BC. And so until today, it's about 2,500 years. So it's kind of incredible to see, based on the facility that built 2,500 years ago, they reorganized, restructured, become the stadiums like this. It's kind of interesting for you to see. So this is second types of the stadium we talk about is Hippodrome, have huge impact today. Right. The third type of sports facilities we would like to talk about for ancient times is in the ancient Romes. When we look at the ancient Greece and ancient Romes, they all really enjoy sports. Rome loved their sports, and their leader, they try to leverage their interest into a mean to control their subject for days on end. So some of those sporting events, the ancient Rome has been organized, they lasting for many days. And for the empire in the ancient Rome, they were really tricky in order to let citizens or like residents at that time were really happy. So they organized a lot of different events in their sports facilities, and they also hold all those spectators spend a lot of money there, enjoy their great times there. When they got back home, they were super tired, but they're also very happy and satisfied, and so they won't complain about the leaders. Because they just experienced a really wonderful event. So they did provide a lot of interesting activities and benefits inside the stadium. They try to encourage people to enjoy the entire atmosphere. When we look at the facility they built, they basically look more glamorous compared to the stadium has been built in the ancient Greece. One of the most really well-known facilities that has been used for hosting sport in the ancient Rome is the Rome Colosseum. Some students might have been to Rome, the capital cities in Italy, right? So you've been to Rome, you've definitely been to Rome Colosseum. It's definitely the place for you to see. Even until today, you can still go there to have a tour there. The tour normally take like 30 minutes. You can look around. Pretty interesting stadiums. So Rome Colosseum was also called the Fabian, the Empire Theater. So ancient Rome, we talk about they love sports. So this facility has been organized for a lot of different kind of sport events. Sometimes they even organize events about how to see people kill animals. Also, they also have the events like how they're going to kill these prisoners inside this Roman Colosseum. So this kind of like the Budo. Rome Colosseum was constructed in 80 AD, so it's been lasting for about 2,000 years. So it's under the Empire Vespasian. That was a gift to the people in Rome, and compared to the facility built in the ancient Greece. So that was one of the first structure that made from the concrete types of materials, and the arch design today are still very, very modern. So the facility excels. They're able to accommodate about 50,000 people, so they can enter the arenas, but this, although they can they could accommodate 50,000 people, but these 50,000 people is going to be very easy for them to identify their seats. They say the history books say they are able to find out their seat within 15 minutes because they were using ticketing systems. So for the all the spectators, when they purchase the tickets, when they go inside the stadium, they normally have the tickets. In the tickets, they will have the numbers of their rows, and also have the level, and also have the seat numbers. And also, in the stadium itself has 78 entrances, so it's very easy for people to go and identify where they're going to seating. So that is actually very, very interesting. And also the stadiums will also have the research seating that particularly hold it for the politician and local successful businessmen or wealthy peoples, right? So those is what made the Rome Colosseums actually very interesting and unique. So I'm also provide short videos here. So today you can also go and watch these 10-minute videos, so give you some idea how this facility been constructed and how these facilities has impact to today's the buildings and facilities. Rome Colosseums also have some impact to today's sports facilities. Some students might notice Los Angeles Memory Colosseum. It looked very, very similar to Rome Colosseum. The structure wise looks very, very similar. The Los Angeles Memory Colosseum is actually the football stadiums for the UFC, which was also the stadium that has been hosted 1984 Summer Olympic Games, right? And the opening ceremony was held there. So this is about the Colosseum. So we introduced three sports facility in ancient times: STADIA, HIPPODROME, and COLOSSEUM. So you know about their differences and what made them unique. We learned about ancient sports facility, and we are also very familiar with the modern sports facility because we've been to so many modern sports facilities nowadays. So what are the similarities and differences? The last topic we're going to cover today is we're going to look at the similarity and differences. Speaking of similarities, so as a stadium, they're all able to accommodate large numbers of people. So we talk about ancient Olympic Games. The stadia are able to accommodate 50,000 spectators. Rome Colosseum was also able to accommodate 50,000 people. So those facilities were big and control and moving these people around, right? They also maintaining flexibilities in multi-use venues. We talk about this facility has been utilized for hosting different types of events. We're using Rome Colosseum as example. We talk about they love watching sports. So the inside the stadiums, so they have a wrestling, they have boxing, they have racing, they have jumping, different kind of events has been hosting theirs. Today's sports facility is also the same. We're not just using for hosting sports, but using for hosting multiple different sports and also hosting for other things. And they also provide security and protection for the VIP. We'll talk about in the ancient Greece, they create a special place for the empires, keep and to accommodate empires. And also a very interesting thing is they're selling tickets, right? We talk about ancient Rome, they start selling tickets, right? They create ticket systems that also have a huge impact to today's events. So what the main difference? Obviously today, we have so many technology. I'm upgrading our stadium and facilities. Our stadiums are very advanced. One of the big difference obviously is today we provide the amenities for the press. We have a lot of media covering the events, so we need to have the media areas. We set up TV camera platforms and TV cable hookups, right? And also we're selling advertising space and naming rights to stadiums. We're using HVAC systems to make sure all the spectators and also participants enjoy these atmospheres and enjoy these experiences. Today we have a parking spaces, right? We also comply with environmental accessibility and other legal issues, right? Nowadays we all encouraged to use like green technologies in order to maintain the stabilities of the stadiums, right? So those are the similarities, differences between ancient sports facility and modern sports facility. All right, that's it for this lecture. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.